If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.
Hey everyone, it's Jen Foster here with the Elite Publishing Podcast. I'm super excited today because we have an author who has written a true crime book, and her name is Pepper Ann. And I'm really excited because this book is based from a Notorious Texas Swindler. So it's based on a true story in Texas, and it's really exciting to get into the book. But we're also going to be finding out how she wrote it, how she published it, and kind of her ins and outs of getting it all ready to be live on Amazon. So welcome, Pepper Ann.
Thank you. Thank you so much for extending an invitation for me to be here.
Great. Well, tell us a little.
I'm excited. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, tell us a little bit when you first decided, I'm going to write this book. Like, what happened? What was the story that was like, I'm going to be an author now and write a book?
Well, I have always had an interest in writing, but it wasn't until I heard a little bit of our family history and who we were related to that it caught my interest. There might be more to this story than what I'm being told. I'd heard that we're related to a cattle rustler, and he is still very much alive today. And so I started digging and asking questions, and once I started researching, I uncovered what I found to be a crime ring here in the state of Texas. And there was not a serious investigation when all of this came about. So that's what sparked my interest, is exposing something that needs to be seen and told.
Well, and had you ever written a book before? Were you a writer, or did you just say, I'm just going to figure this out?
Well, I've always had an interest in writing, so I always wrote little stories here and there, but this was my first book. I'd never actually had anything published, so I said, let's do it. Let's take it head on. And then once I did, I started reaching out to professionals to kind of help guide me along the way.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about your writing process. Did you set a certain time every day that you wrote, or did you just, start researching, or did you spend, 8 hours a day? How did you get the book written? What was your process?
Well, once I found an editor and a literary attorney, I started researching, and I was digging through court records and all types of. I reached out to law enforcement, and they were so kind in giving me their reports, and I requested the FOIA records. So while I was researching, I was also writing, and to fill some of that time. And it seemed like I was writing probably 6 hours a day. Not every day. I would have times where I'd sit back and I'd think, I don't know, this doesn't make sense. But I was researching while I was writing, and I hit it head on. I mean, I scheduled interviews with people, with victims of the crimes. I was a little nervous about contacting them because I'm related to the person that, they came in contact with, but they were wonderful with me. So I was writing, researching, and interviewing all at the same time.
Well, that's really cool. So you were writing it. I like that you said you got an editor, because I think a lot of authors miss this, and they think, oh, well, my mom was a school teacher, so she could read it and edit it, or my cousin, can edit it. So, which is fine if they are a scholared editor, but you're also should pay them for that because of your family member. So I like that you hired an editor. So tell us about that process. Did you interview a bunch, or did you just find no one, or how did that work?
Well, I tell you, I started researching online and trying to find editors in my area. It was important to me because this is a regional story that I found someone in Texas who could help me keep the story authentic, the vocabulary, just everything about the story. I found a few. I started interviewing them, and I found some that just weren't right. I found several who were telling me, this is how we're going to do it. This is what we want to do. I got rid of them.
Yeah.
I came across my editor, who is a very dear friend. He's been with me the whole time. His name is John T. Davis. And I told him what I wanted to do. And he said, okay, I want you to do a timeline for me. And he also recommended reading the book In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. And I did. I listened to everything he said. And I followed him. And he was the one I hired. Once I interviewed him, I knew right away. What's funny is when I was interviewing editors, because I knew that I was going to be exposing some dangerous people. And so that's why I wanted this to be done correctly. That's why it was important for me to get the attorney. Actually, I got her first. And then after I found her, then I got the editor, because I wanted to make sure I was protected. But when I was interviewing the editors, my family was, and they wanted to know who I was going to be. It was kind of, it wasn't just me. Yeah. There were other people.
Well, and it's important to have the right one. Yeah. Sounds like you did a great process figuring it out. And I like that your editor was also helping with as a book coach, because I think, you know, having that person that says, okay, make me a timeline. Or I know that we have book coaches where they'll actually make the timeline for you and say, you need to stay on this track or else the book's not coming out this year, you know, kind of thing for writing. And so I do like that you had that book coach. So that's really important. So tell us, did you...
Well, I knew that, I'd never written a book. And so I thought, if I'm going to do this and be taken seriously, I have to have those professionals in my corner, and I have to listen to them.
Right. Why reinvent the wheel when other people know what to do?
Right. Right. And I would give him a draft, and he would say, okay, I need more of this, I need more of that. And I knew the whole story because I researched it. And so I came back and I gave him more than what he asked, and he would write back in his notes, how did you know this? I just didn't know how much people wanted to know. So he was wonderful in guiding me.
That's great. Yeah. And did you decide to self-publish or go the traditional route?
Well, I ended up self-publishing, but in the beginning I wanted to traditionally publish. I do want to say this. I reached out to many literary agents, and they were wonderful with me. As you know, if they're not interested, they will not respond. Most, they don't have time. A lot of them responded, and they said, because it's a tradition, because it's a regional story, they didn't see how they would be able to sell it to the publishers. But they encouraged me to keep going. They said, keep going and you can find your way. So I got no's, but I was encouraged to keep going. But I ended up self-publishing, on my own.
That's great. Well, and we believe in self-publishing here at our company, Elite Online Publishing, because you get to keep your own rights and royalties. Now, that being said, though, some people will self-publish first, and then their book gets so much attention that the traditional publishers say, hey, I want to publish or republish your book. So we've had a few authors that's happened to them, and then they would take their book down, and then there'll be a new cover. And, you know, it's mostly the same book, but they just take down the self-published one and put up the one that's published under the traditional publisher. But I like the self-publishing way as well, because you can keep your rights and keep your royalties.
You know, I've met so many amazing people who've helped me along the way that if I were ever offered, if that was an opportunity ever offered to me, I would lose those people because they only work with, I wouldn't be able to work with them because they only work with self-published authors. So I think it would be an honor if someone offered that to me, but I'm going to stay self-published. Yeah. I don't want to get away from the people who've helped me.
Yeah, sure.
If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be out.
For sure.
Yeah.
So as you self-published, what kind of challenges or things did you run into? Did you run into anything that was, hard, or that seemed like, oh, I'm frustrated with this?
I think the biggest thing for me was probably trying to market my book. I wasn't exactly sure how to go about it. My PA, Laura, was with me every step of the way, and she helped me with getting it. I published it through Ingram Sparks. That's where I had it printed. And I stepped back and I thought, okay, what's the best way to market this? And once I put a little thought into it, it worked. I didn't realize how difficult it would be to get into libraries. because they usually only want traditionally published books.
Right.
But I sat down and I started contacting them, and some of them said yes, some said and they bought copies, and it just went from there.
Yeah. I like that you keep saying that people said no, because I've just recently read a book called Go for No, but it's a sales book. But the whole point is you get enough no's, you'll get yeses. So it's kind of a numbers game, right? So it's like contact 1,000 libraries and 100 will say yes or something, or whatever the numbers are. I don't know for sure. But so I think that's great that you.
It's a little discouraging.
It is, yeah.
It's a little discouraging to get all those no's at first, but you get them out of the way and go for the yeses.
Yeah. Well, and one thing to remember, they might say no now, but if you go to them next year, they might say yes, right? Or in 6 months. So you can always go back and ask again, because it's probably a different librarian you're going to talk to or a different person that's going to be in charge, right?
I actually ran into that situation. Yes, one of the libraries said, if we want your book, we'll reach out to you. And by coincidence, that same library reached out, asked me if I would be on their author panel at an event, and they ordered my book. So you're absolutely right. Just grin, bear it, move on, and maybe they'll come back.
Yes, I like that. Well, and I think it's important what you said about, I mean, you reached out to libraries, but starting locally, starting in your area, and then moving out from there, right? Because I know that, most states like to support their local authors. So that happened here at the Barnes & Noble here. I went and said, oh, when do you have an event where local authors can come? And they said, oh, we have a day for that, Authorpalooza, and they had something going on. So then I could come in, and then Barnes & Noble would sell my book, because they had to go through that, right? Which they just are buying from the Ingram catalog, right? So it works out, whether it's a library or a bookstore. You just have to be persistent, and they'll have it in there. So that's great.
I've heard a lot of authors say, I don't know if they'll carry my book, and they're sitting there questioning, and I just jump full force ahead.
Yeah.
I don't have time to question it.
Go talk to the manager. Barnes & Noble everywhere is now, the managers are the ones ordering the books. So you can just go and talk to them. And that's true with any bookstore. All your brick and mortar bookstores that are in your town, just walk in and give them your one sheet, your PDF, or give them a copy of the book, or both, so they can have the ISBN number. They know where to order it. You just let them know, hey, it's on the Ingram catalog, and then they can put it in their bookstore.
I'm even in gift shops.
Oh, that's good.
Hospital gift shops. I mean, yeah, like you said, just go and talk to people, and you don't know what'll happen. Right. Well,
let's get into the story of the book a little bit more. Next month, we're publishing a book for the Unlikely Texas Ranger. And so when I heard about your book and heard about, this Texas, the rustler. So I was thinking you were saying wrestler before, but it's a rustler. The Notorious Texas Swindler is the name of the book. And we're putting out this book for the Texas Ranger. So I was like, oh, I wonder if he had a part of this. I was trying to search through the book to try and see if there was a story in there about it. But tell us a little bit about the Texas Swindler, and, tell us a little bit about the book summary so we can go and get the book.
Well, let's see. It's about a family member. I did not know I was related to him until, like I said, it was brought up to me. He's a cousin. And once I started researching, here's what I found. It's about a well-known, let's just call him a con man, because that's what he is, a criminal. He escaped jail twice in his lifetime. He began rustling when he was in his teens, and he started with a DPS state trooper, someone in law enforcement.
So tell all those New York City girls and gals and authors what a rustler is, because I was confused too on rustler.
Okay. Okay, well, what a rustler is, it's someone who steals farm animals, such as cattle or horses, and they gather them all up. That's where you get the term rustling from. They gather them all up, they load them up into usually a trailer, and then they haul them off, and then they resell them somewhere else. But rustling is basically just stealing a farm animal.
Okay, so all the people in Montana, Wyoming, Texas, Idaho, Nebraska, and South Dakota know that, but probably everywhere else no one knows. So that's awesome.
No worries.
Awesome. Okay, keep going on. So he was a rustler.
Yes, he started out as a rustler. He got involved with individuals in the 80s. That's actually when it all kind of started for him. And when the con went down with the DPS state trooper, the DPS state trooper just got a slap on the hand or slap on the wrist, and he lost his job, but he's still out and about causing problems for people. And then individuals who kind of stepped forward that Bob's father knew, who he worked at a ranch here in Texas, stepped forward and they paid Bob's bonds. So he had probation is what he had. Then Bob got caught up with those individuals and things went from bad to worse. And the individuals that I actually expose in my book are the ones who paid his bonds in the 80s. They refused to let Bob go. So they had him running drugs, running all kinds of cons. He met and married a woman who took things a step further, and they rustled more cattle, and they were stealing money from women, and it just went from there. He violated his parole. He'd ended up in prison once before, and then he married this woman, and then he violated his parole. So they ended up catching him and sending him to Grayson County Jail, and that was a second jail escape. And that second jail escape is what brought a lot of attention on him. And he escaped with 4 other inmates in the jail, and they were on the run for 4 days.
Wow.
And law enforcement, they were on their tail. They were looking for him. And it ended with an 8-hour standoff with law enforcement. They'd held a married couple hostage in their home. And this story, to me, it's amazing because there's so many feelings in it. The Foresters, that's the married couple at the end of the book who were held hostage in their home, became very close to them. And they viewed Bob differently because he released them. They viewed him a little differently than other people who had come in contact with Bob. So this story it's true crime, it's thriller, it's suspense, but also has a little heart in it. People tell me when they read it, they go in, there's so many twists and turns in it, and they tell me, oh, I didn't like him. But then I started to realize I kind of like him a little. He was a victim, and then they're like, no, he was terrorizing people. So you walk away from this story not sure what to think. Yeah, because I'm exposing people who should have been exposed, but it's got everything in it.
Awesome. I really like the books that have the twists and turns, and there's a few really good movies where you start cheering for the bad guy. You're like, wait, why am I cheering for the killer? Wait, what's going on? Or whatever the book's about. So I'm excited to read your book, The Notorious Texas Swindler, the Mastermind Behind the Grayson County 5. So tell us where people can go to buy that book and to read it on their own.
Well, the book is available everywhere. I do have it on my website, which is pepperannauthor.com. You can go there, and if you would like a signed copy, you would actually go through my website. A lot of people can get it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It's all online. I didn't realize, but it's even at Walmart and Target online. I mean, how wild is that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's also in Australia and UK, so any listeners that are overseas, you can get it and learn about the Texas Swindler.
It's in Spain. It's in so many countries. Ireland, Zimbabwe.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
It's everywhere. You just Google the name and it'll lead you wherever you want to go. Yeah.
Great.
It's there.
Great. Well, we'll put your website up in the show notes, pepperannauthor.com, and people can go there and get a signed copy, or they can go and find it at their favorite bookstore and order it there as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And I also have a newsletter. People are more than welcome to sign up for if they're interested in hearing my most recent, what I'm working on, what's coming out.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to tell the audience today? Is there any tips for our authors, or is there a question that I didn't ask that you'd like to answer?
It's so important for me to tell everyone that no matter what your passion is, I think you ought to at least attempt it. Believe in yourself enough to do whatever it is that you have a passion to do. I had people who were loosening the lug nuts on our tires and deleting my work because they didn't want me to tell the story, and I kept going. So whatever it is you want to do, just put some faith in yourself and keep going, and surround yourself with the right people. Have them in your corner, and just, you don't know what your outcome is going to be. You may end up being a shining star before it's all over with.
I like that. Thank you, Pepper Ann, for being on the show today. And if everyone will go to Amazon or wherever you buy books and get her book, that would be great. You can subscribe and like our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're looking to publish your book, or if you need help marketing your book, contact us at eliteonlinepublishing.com.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.